Mike, we have a debt ceiling deal. It's passed the Senate and it is going to Biden's desk to be signed. You
Woohoo!
pleased?
The whole debt and the budget for the federal government in the United States is so manipulated and so much like lifetime politicians just need to be completely stopped right now because what they do is they just vie for money for people that give them money to continue to stay in office.
Right.
So they're
Yeah.
fighting with people to increase the debt so that we can spend more money on stuff for certain businesses that help for their campaign funding. So really, like, yeah, great, we're not going to default on our money, but maybe we should have defaulted on our money so that there would be a little bit more of an awakening to the reality of how manipulated our real financial systems are.
Perhaps, yeah. Well, this debt ceiling bill, it only saves the US government 1.5 trillion over 10 years, which is still, a drop in the ocean, really. When you think about it, the budget is like 6.8 trillion a year, and we're saving 1.5 over 10 years. That's like, 150 billion a year. It's not even really going to make that much of a dent. I'll tell you what's in the debt ceiling bill because it was a bit of a compromise on both sides. It keeps non-defense discretionary spending in the 2024 budget roughly steady at 2023 levels, and it only grows by 1% in 2025. Defense, there is a requirement for an 886 billion budget, and that's a 3% increase. The SNAP program, that's food stamps, they're actually expanding work requirements. I couldn't find what these work requirements are, but apparently there are now work requirements for able-bodied adults under the age of 54 in order to receive the food stamps. But the funny thing is, the Congressional Budget Office says that actually this bill is going to make the SNAP program, the food stamps program, actually get more expensive. It's going to add $2.1 billion over 10 years, which is like the opposite of what they were trying to achieve, which is kind of crazy. The SNAP one is interesting, I think, because I was listening to some analysis the other day and they were talking about small businesses trying to find workers, right? And how hard it is for small businesses to try to find workers. And it's because, well, part of it's because they're competing with the government, because there are all these programs where you can get free money from the government, whether that's unemployment insurance or a SNAP, WIC, all these different programs, assistance with rent, etc. And basically, people are competing. Some businesses, they're competing with the government because some people will just not work because they can get all this free money, right? So if you introduce work requirements, say you have to work in order to get this free money, then it's a little bit fairer to the small businesses. So as a small business owner myself, I thought that was pretty interesting and pretty cool. And then, there are a few other things, notably the COVID aid. It rescinds roughly 27 billion in unspent COVID aid to public health infrastructure and disaster relief programs. That will be reallocated to non-defense discretionary spending. So the Democrats can use that money to sort of make up some of the money they're now not allowed to spend in the discretionary spending non-defense.
The Women and Children program is a little bit different than the SNAP program. Like that just provides the dairy products pretty much from what I know, and bread, I think, to women
Right. Yeah.
who have, recently had children.
SNAP is the one they're bringing in the work requirements, not WIC.
Originally, it's called food stamps, right? 25 years ago, they changed the name and become a little bit more palatable. If you're an individual and you don't have a job, then you get more. But if you have a job, then it's based on your income. And I think the threshold is pretty low as it stands.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see what it's really going to do for people who are actually working. Because if you're actually working and you need to be on a SNAP program, there's a systemic problem in our society. Unless you have like 5 or 4 or 3 kids and you're raising them on your own, then it makes sense. But if you're a single person who needs the SNAP funding, then and you can't even survive on your job and you're working normally, there's a systemic problem there. But
Yeah.
I think it's kind of interesting that they're adding money to this program. The only thing I can think of is that the inflation on food, maybe they need to add more money to it because food gets
Right.
really expensive in the last 2 years.
It seems that it's quite a heavy compromise, but the Democrats seem a bit more enthusiastic about it than the Republicans. So we've actually got an article here, every senator who voted against the bill. And you can see, I think there were 31 Republicans that voted against it, but only 5 what they call progressives, which includes some Democrats and I think Bernie Sanders, who's technically an independent, basically people who vote with the Democrats. So 5 of them voted against. One senator didn't attend the vote. It passed, but the Democrats were a lot more enthusiastic about it than the Republicans were. So these are the people who voted for it. So if you want, you can see whether your senator voted for it or not. 4 members of the Democratic caucus: Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren voted against it. Bernie Sanders, I think, voted against it as well.
They probably wanted a bit more spending.
Yes, exactly. The Democrats that voted against it wanted it to be more spending and more left-wing. The Republicans voted against it because they thought it was too left-wing. J.D. Vance, there you go, he voted against it on the Republican side.
I'm happy that it's over. We'll cross the bridge again in 2 years when everything has to be upped again. They're going to continue to spend money. And, we'll ride the bubble of the financial world until 25.
And I think everyone enjoying 5% interest rates on the 6-month treasury now sheds a sigh of relief that you're safe for basically 2 years. You can invest in 6-month treasuries and roll them over for up to 2 years without much worry, because we're not going to default. So I'm going to be buying some.